You'll find Richland Cemetery a few short miles south of Pittsburgh. Its well-groomed acreage is typical of thousands of urban cemeteries, and its presence most likely given little regard if you pass by. For decades, rows of tombstones have stood there, silently.
Silent. A word often associated with cemeteries. But are they really so silent? Perhaps we need to listen more closely to the tales gently whispered around each stone. Handsome monument, is it not? In 1890, it took 6 weeks to haul those granite sections by wagon up the steep hill from the railroad to the cemetery. It certainly caused quite a stir here in this little town. Oh, do pardon my rudeness, we haven't been introduced. I am John Creedy Risher, and it's my honor to be your host for this journey through Richland Cemetery. Generations of the Rishers are buried around that granite monument, my wife and mother included. On May 11th, 1875, I lost them both, on the very same day. The outpouring of sympathy from my friends and colleagues was a great comfort to me. At one time, I owned almost every acre of land that Dravosburg rests upon. I made my fortune in coal mining, real estate, and boat building. Back in 1769, Henry Wood patented this property from the Penn family. The property changed hands 5 times before it came under my care. In 1886, the only cemetery in town, the German Lutheran Cemetery, had reached its capacity and there was a need for a new burial site. Therefore, I sold 13 of my acres on the hill above Curry's Hollow to the newly formed Dravosburg Cemetery Association. Henry Wood had called his tract of land Rich Lands. Thus, it seemed appropriate that the association used that name for the new cemetery. The first burial was that of infant Levi Watkins, whose existence on this earth lasted a mere 12 days. There are now almost 17,000 souls resting here, and each has their own unique story to tell.
I was just 16 years old when I ran away from home to join the Union Army. On August 9, 1862, I enlisted in the 123rd Pennsylvania Volunteers and was assigned as the company bugler. In my 9 months with them, we saw action at Fredericksburg and Chancellorsville. In 1864, I re-enlisted in Thompson's Battery C, Independent Pennsylvania Light Artillery.
Gun number 1, prepare!
While stationed at Camp Berry near Washington, D.C., we were granted leave and decided to take in a play called Our American Cousin at Ford's Theater. When we took our seats that night on April 14, 1865, none of us knew that we were about to become a part of history.
Mr. President. Mr. President. Mr. President.
After we made our way down the stairs carrying the president, we had to wait for about 5 minutes on the street for a place to take him. They finally told us to take him to the Peterson boarding house. We had to lay him diagonally across the bed because he was too long to fit. After the war, I was a steamboat captain and became well known in river towns all along the Ohio. I married Minerva Thomas and we had 7 children. I saw and experienced a lot of things in my life, but nothing can compare to the night I became a part of history.
Jabez was one of 4 local boys who helped carry President Lincoln from Ford Theater. John Corey, William Sample, and Jacob Souls were also from the Mon Valley, and like Jabez, I'm certain that they regarded that particular night as the most unforgettable event of their lives. Just like Jabez, there are many Civil War veterans interred at Richland. One of the most distinguished of those veterans is Charles Oliver. Charles Oliver was a local boy born in Elizabeth in 1842. When the war started, he joined Company G, 12th Pennsylvania Infantry, and then re-enlisted into the 100th Pennsylvania Infantry, known as the Roundheads. He served to the end of the war and fought in some of the bloodiest battles of the Civil War, including Antietam. But it was at the Battle of Petersburg that Charles Oliver won his nation's highest award, the Medal of Honor. He led a counterattack to retake Fort Stedman and captured the colors of the 31st Georgia Infantry. The U.S. Congress awarded Charles 15 days paid leave in addition to his medal. Surprisingly, there's one Confederate soldier buried here. Daniel Entler hailed from Shepherdstown in Jefferson County, Virginia, where his family owned a hotel which was considered the premier establishment of its time. The hotel was used as a hospital during and after the Battle of Antietam. Ironically, many Union soldiers received their care there or died there. Daniel Entler enlisted in the 2nd Virginia Infantry that comprised part of what famously became known as the Stonewall Brigade. Unlike Charles Oliver, Daniel spent most of his Civil War service as a POW. He was captured and exchanged 3 times. He fought at Cold Harbor and Chancellorsville, but it was at Gettysburg that his military service ended when a ball shattered his arm above the elbow. After the war, Entler returned to Shepherdstown. In 1887, he moved to McKeesport to be with his daughter Lily and family. He died in 1917 at the age of 83 and was laid to rest here in northern soil. 2 old enemies buried in the same ground.
With malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations.
President Abraham Lincoln's 2nd inaugural address, March 4th, 1865. Unfortunately, the lasting peace to which Lincoln aspired was not to be, not between nations, and not in our own homeland. One of the more interesting characters interred at Richland is Edward Pigford, born in Jefferson Borough between Large and West Elizabeth. As a young trooper, Private Edward Pigford was thrust onto history's stage in an obscure place called Little Bighorn.
The day of that battle, we nearly died of thirst before the Indians ever got their chance at us. Now, my father, he came to America from England. Now, I was born right here in Allegheny County. And I started working in the mines when I was 9 years old. Well, sir, I quickly decided that was not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. No, sir, I craved adventure, so I ran off and I enlisted in the Army to fight the Indians. That was in September 1875. 9 months later, I found myself at the bloodiest defeat of the Indian Wars, Battle of the Little Bighorn. I joined the Army for adventure. I reckon I got enough of it that day to last anyone a lifetime. I had a horse shot out from under me. I saw a man die from a headshot right in front of my face. I saw Custer go down, and I helped bury him and his men. I took two bullets in the fight myself. There's one of them up here. I can't show you the other one in polite company. Why am I alive when so many others died? Well, I'll tell you, Hoss, it was luck. Not Custer's luck, no siree. It was my luck. Custer split the 7th into 3 battalions. Our battalion was to attack the Indian camp from one end, but Custer took 211 poor unlucky souls down the valley to attack from the other end. Well, we started taking casualties, so our commander pulled us back to a safer position. Custer, on the other hand, rode his men into a hornet's nest. Thousands of Sioux and Cheyenne, led by the great war chiefs, Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse. From where we were dug in, we couldn't see the fight, but we could hear it. The gunfire sounded desperate. My captain decided to send me and 2 other soldiers out to see how bad it was. Suicide mission if there ever was one. But we made it. We made it to where we could see Custer and his men make their last stand. We watched helpless as they were surrounded by a cyclone of naked savages, swirling tighter and tighter and screaming and shooting and clubbing and tomahawking until there wasn't a white man left alive down there. I can still hear that awful yell of Indian victory like it was yesterday. We had to fight our way back with the warriors after us, as thick as grasshoppers they was. The 2 men with me fell. I was the only one to make it back alive. Captain asked me, "Well, how is it?" "Captain," I said, "there ain't a man left alive down there. They're all butchered. Every one of them." We fought on until night. Then all the next day. There was no water to speak of. My God, it was hotter than the hinges of hell. Then, out of nowhere, the Indians just pulled out. It was like the wind had just blew their camp right out of the valley. They spotted our relief party, led by General Terry. So it was finally over, except for burying the dead. Bodies were a mess. Indians had stripped and scalped and mutilated every man and every officer. All except Custer. The 265 brave men never saw daylight again. It was about a year after that I decided to leave the 7th Cavalry. I reckon I had enough of fighting Indians. I came back to Allegheny County, settled down, raise a family, and go back to mining. You know, there's one thing you can say about this part of the country. You may have to dig coal for a living, but by God, you're never going to go thirsty. Oh, yeah. Yes, sir, that day, I'd have given my life for one drink of good old Pennsylvania rye. And I damn near did.
On April 6, 1917, the United States declared war on Germany, and thousands of Americans joined the military to cross the Atlantic and fight the Germans. Many came from small towns just like Dravosburg. Claude Belts was one such young man. Claude was the first man from Dravosburg to die in that terrible conflict. He was killed in August 1918, just a few months before the war ended. Our American Legion Post 380 is named in his honor. Bert Foster was the first soldier from McKeesport killed in the Great War. The American Legion in McKeesport is named for him. Charles Raymond Burns was the first casualty from Duquesne. The VFW post in that town is named in his honor. Hundreds of other war veterans are buried at Richland as well. Although their markers do not reveal their deeds, their service to our country will never be forgotten. As the soldiers returned from Europe, another enemy, silent and deadly, attacked the entire world. By the fall of 1918, the Spanish flu pandemic, or La Grippe, had spread and eventually would kill more than 500 million people. 1/4 of the U.S. population contracted the flu, and 675,000 died from it. And it didn't spare women or children.
Our Andrew was just 6 months old when he took sick. We did everything the authorities told us to do to fight the epidemic. Every morning, we put sulfur in our shoes. We wore gauze masks when we went out. The Red Cross gave people shots. The steel mills in McKeesport vaccinated my husband and the other workers. But nothing seemed to help. Almost every family was affected by the epidemic. 18% of the population died. I can still recall Susan learning Verajaka on the spinet piano in the parlor. Both children were the picture of health. Before the grip took hold. The Lord was merciful, and He did not allow us to suffer long.
I had a little bird, its name was Enza. I opened the window and influenza. Its name was Enza. I opened the window and influenza.
Just as this unexplained darkness seemed a permanent fixture, nature and providence proved that hope can be born again. George Taylor, a poor young blacksmith, came here from England by way of Providence, Rhode Island. When choosing a town in which to settle, George chose Providence, Rhode Island. As he stated in his autobiography, "I trusted in Providence that Providence would provide, and it did." From there he ventured into the Monongahela Valley and worked in the steel mills. But his first love was poetry. George was a published poet, and he became unofficially known as the Poet Laureate of McKeesport.
Since life at the longest is only a span, let this be our motto: man do good to man, and God will forgive us. I have not the least fear, if we should indulge in a glass of good beer.
George read that one at the McKeesport Bartenders Union Social, held at Turner Opera House in McKeesport. Needless to say, they loved it. In the prologue to his book of poems, George expressed his feelings about his poetry.
If my poems please you, I shall be gratified. If not, I ask you think. He hath done what he could. Yours truly, George Taylor.
George's funeral from his Summit Street home was large, with tributes from numerous dignitaries and organizations across the area, including a beautiful floral bouquet from the officers of Standard Oil Company. Not bad for a poor English blacksmith. What tour of a cemetery would be complete without a good ghost story? There have been some strange sightings over the years at Richland, the most recent occurring on this very spot. As the story goes, a gentleman visited the grave of his mother on a daily basis for months. The cemetery manager, Mike Nemeth, came to expect his visits. Then he abruptly stopped visiting. When he finally returned to the cemetery, Mike asked him why he had been away for so long, and he reluctantly told this story.
I was returning to my car after visiting my mother's grave. I noticed two women seated on a bench under the large maple tree, but curiously, they were dressed in 1880s garb, long dresses and bonnets. As I got closer, they both raised their heads to look at me.
Now I ask, would you be so eager to return? So you see, from the most elaborate to the most humble, there is a unique story behind every stone. And it's clear that cemeteries are not as silent as you thought, and dead men do tell tales. I do hope you enjoyed your visit to Richland Cemetery. Good day, and come again soon.
Perhaps if you visit your local cemetery, you will find a story about your family. Check with a local historical society for help in uncovering those stories. They're waiting to be found.